All right. So, just before we begin, I just need to mention my voice might sound a little bit off. I've been a little bit off this whole weekend, but I've been needing to get a video out for a while, so we're just going to get into it. So, this is Lawless Hearts. This is the TTRPG I have been working on for a good while now. Kind of on and off here for a little bit, but recently I've been working on it a lot. This is essentially, imagine Wild West meets high fantasy for a TTRPG. This game will play very similarly to Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm actually going to kind of just scroll through this and kind of explain how things work as we're going. So we'll have art, and I'll show. We'll have the cover art, the front cover art, to be the. I started to put these down. Don't worry, they will be down in the end versions. This is not complete yet. This is still a work in progress. But our front cover art will be displayed for the stuff for this video. We'll show both images here and show you these arts made by wonderful people, Aaron Tomset, and I have the other one. I'll put their name on text for where you can find them. I have it. I just haven't written it down yet. Let's go ahead and go through this. So we got the contents. There's a lot of stuff, lots of many races, many classes. But let's go through some of this other stuff first. So, Lawless Hearts, the stats that it uses are the 7 deadly sins or the 7 heavenly virtues. I'll determine what that means, but essentially the stats that you have, in the order they show up on the character sheet, are Wrath Justice, Pride Hope, Gluttony Temperance, Greed Charity, Sloth Prudence, Envy Faith, Lust Fortitude. They essentially mean the same things, but you'll have your different skills here, where Envy Faith will be luck, acrobatics, religion, investigation, animal handling. Gluttony Temperance is medicine, health, and nature. Your Greed Charity is stealth, sleight of hand, wisdom, and perception. Lust Fortitude is deception, performance, charm, charisma, and corruption. Pride Hope is dexterity, grapple, persuasion, determine. Sloth Prudence is intelligence, magic, history, vehicle, diplomacy. And then Wrath Justice is strength, athletics, stress, intimidation, and combat. So that's all the skills that will fall underneath each of the stats. The stats in this game, they, unlike D&D where you have the big number and the small number, where like a 13 is a +1, it is just either, it goes from -3 up to a maximum of +7 for players. But monsters can go even higher than that for their stat-wise, and that is just the straight-up bonus you will add to your d20 rolls. Now, in this game, there is defense, dodge, and resistance. Dodge will function essentially like your AC does in D&D, where your dodge is your chance to get hit. Your dodge is 10 plus a character's Pride Hope, unless they have other things that say otherwise for it. Other class features or spells or things that can change it so they will have more dodge. Defense is determined upon the armor you are wearing. Defense will reduce the damage that you take from physical attacks. And resistance is determined by your Sloth Prudence, Envy Faith, or Lust Fortitude, whichever is higher. Resistance reduces the damage you take from magical attacks. However, if you are wearing enough pieces of heavy armor, your resistance will get reduced. So advantage works the same way it does in D&D. Roll two dice. A critical hit. If you get a crit, it will deal with a weapon. Crits with a weapon will deal maximum possible damage. So there's no roll, and it will ignore defense. Crits with spells, if you choose to take that option, because there's options there when it comes to spellcasting. If you crit with a spell, you can choose to do that. Otherwise, it's just a normal hit. We already went over dodge, arcane attack rolls, which is spell attack rolls, which is same thing, d20 plus stat and proficiency bonus. That's also existing. I actually have had a video about how combat works in this on my channel previously, so go check out that video if you're interested in it. But it's ways that I had tried to fix combat in things to make it much more interesting and constantly changing instead of just turn to turn. Even though it is still kind of turn to turn, it's instead of being set the same every single round, it's different every round. So there's also the actions you can expect to normally take: attack, casting a spell, dashing, all that kind of stuff. Um, there's a unique action called Deep Breath. So we'll get into that when we get into stamina. There's all the damage types in the game, which is multiple damage types, most of which are similar enough to D&D. Some with new names for this than otherwise, but there's also new damage types as Soul, Radiation, Blood, and Weird are all new damage types unique to this. We have the conditions, which have most of the D&D conditions, but also the Drunk and Tired. So Drunk has levels which you get when you get a level of Drunk whenever you drink, because there's drinks that will give you different effects that you can take during combat, but they'll give you levels of Drunks while you have them. At 5 levels, you will become unconscious. And there's Tired, which we'll also get into when we get into Stamina, but this replaces essentially Exhaustion. The one's actually called Exhausted. So we had Resistance earlier, so to replace previous damage resistance where you take half damage from something, it is called Protection. So we have Weakness, Protection, and Immunity, which works as you would kind of expect. Double damage from certain damage types, half damage from certain damage types, or no damage. Now, we'll get to death in a second. Here's the stamina. Every single player character will have stamina. It is as a base set to what it says on the level here on this table. So you always start with 10 at level 1. But whenever you level up, it will increase as according to this table. In addition to leveling up stuff, you can also, whenever you level up, there's options where you can also increase the stamina even more. So you're not locked into having this somewhat low amount, but you also don't always need to. Now, here's one of the things. When a creature hits 0 hit points, they will essentially have one of these death rolls to deal with. These death rules give you an option to either do a last stand where you make a critical hit attack against a creature that reduced you to 0, but die in the process. You can choose to go unconscious, no longer bleeding out, but you gain a scar. Or you can choose to draw from a standard 52 deck of cards and do what happens depending on what is drawn. Where hearts will heal you, diamonds will give you temporary hit points, clubs will make you fail a certain number of death saves, and then you start making death saves when whenever one of your action cards comes up. So it gives you some time, but you're very, very on death's door when that happens. If you draw a spade, you will instantly die. The jokers are a part of that. If you draw a black joker, you get 2 failed death saves and 2 successful, and must immediately roll another death save. And then a red joker, you return to 1 hit point and immediately take an action. So there's all these options about what can happen with when you choose to do so. So yeah, I just want to go over that because I'm going to scroll down here a bit more for stamina. So stamina, every action that you take costs stamina. So like the attack action takes 2 stamina to do. Block takes 1. Spell will depend upon the actual spell. This is old information. I need to update that. The spell is dependent upon what stamina cost the spell says it costs. There's dash, which takes 2. Disengage takes 1. A dodge takes 2. Escape is 1. Grapple is 1. Help, hide are both 1. A ready does not take any because it's just 2 holding an action. A shove action takes 3 stamina, and using an object takes 2. When you reach 0 stamina, that's when you're going to have all these tired, exhausted, worn out rules where things will just get worse and worse for you if you keep running out. But when you hit 0, your stamina gets set right back to half its maximum. But if you want to avoid reaching those, you can spend an action to take a deep breath where you will recover half your maximum stamina back. But it takes an action. And speaking of, if you didn't watch the other video, everyone as a base has 2 action cards per turn. And that's how that works. So, yeah, there's all that. In terms of rest, there are long rests and breaks. Long rest will take 8 hours of sleep. A break is a 10-minute of light activity, and during a break, you can roll hit dice to recover hit points if you wish, or you'll recover half your maximum stamina. even though you can also just do that out of combat by taking deep breaths. We had already talked about crits, advantage, disadvantages. There's also dynamic rolls, where sometimes you will be asked to roll 2d20 and take the result that is further away from 10, not the result that's higher. You take whichever result is further away from 10, taking the higher if they are the same distance away. So essentially, yeah, it gives you advantage, disadvantage, dynamic. Unarmed strikes will do 1 plus your Wrath Justice. If you get if you natural 1, it'll become an automatic failure, and then you'll roll a d4 if it's a weapon attack, and one of these will happen. Proficiencies work the same. If you're proficient, you can add your proficiency bonus to attack rolls with weapons. Proficiency with shield gives you the ability to gain its bonus while you're wielding it. You can wear armor if you don't have proficiency in this, but if you do not have proficiency and are wearing armor that you're not proficient in, you will suffer the penalty that armor would give. So then here's a few other things. We got the sizes, which is all the sizes are determined entirely upon a number value, and that's somewhere in that range. Instead of, D&D being like tiny, small, medium, large, huge, it's just 1 and then goes up from there. Most characters will be around size 3. The Fate coin is a fun little thing that I've added. It is a once per session, if most of the group agrees, before a roll is made, they can choose to flip a coin. So either, then they will decide if a coin lands in a head, it would instead be that dice roll would be a natural 20. If the coin lands in a tails, that result is a natural 1. So it is good for very high moments you want to go to use Fate, and they agree to use a Fate coin for it. It's a once per session thing. It will regenerate every single session. Concentration in this also works differently. Concentration is set to be a certain way where you will essentially set a d4 on your character sheet at 4. Whenever you take damage, you will lower the dice by 1. If the damage you take is lower than your level, it does not go down at all. The dice will lower by more than 1 if the damage is taken is larger than a quarter of your maximum hit points. It'll go down by 2. When your concentration dice would hit 0, you will then make a Gluttony Temperance save. The DC for this save will be equal to half the damage you took to lose concentration, or 10, whichever is higher. So essentially, you don't just concentrate on something and then instantly lose it from like a little hit, or a bunch of little tiny hits won't make you lose concentration eventually, because if they're small enough, it won't even affect your concentration. And then we have part of the fun part. So alignment is I'm not a big fan of D&D's alignment. A lot of people aren't. Putting things into such vague categories, there's so much more than just good, evil, chaos, lawful. So this is where part of the reason of the stats comes in. So each stat, as I stated previously, is a sin and a virtue. During part of the character creation, you will either choose the sin or the virtue, and you determine which one is more important to the character. You will then do that for every single one of your stats, and then once you've done that, you'll come and look at this table. Depending on what you've chosen, that is one of the modifiers you can apply to your your alignment. So as such, when we're looking here, say you chose all sins, you then have the options of vindictive, arrogant, excessive, selfish, lazy, resentful, and hedonistic. Well, you will choose any two and put them in whatever order you want to determine your character's alignment, the kind of thing what defines them. So let's just write simple: wrath, pride. What if you want to be vindictively arrogant or arrogantly vindictive? See, those are two very different things, so the order also matters. There is so many different options for what your alignment can be, but it doesn't really define you so much. It defines you a lot more as what you are instead of having 9 options. So, we're going to go down a little more. We have your classic D&D movements: walking, swimming, flying, burrowing. There's the sights, which you have dark vision, tremor sense, true sight, and heat vision, which is essentially thermal vision. Every single action card, you have your action, a support action, or your movement and your movement. So you can move each one of your action cards unless your action card otherwise states you cannot. You have your movement, you have your actions, and support actions are things where you can like drink a potion, drink one charge of a drink you have, or you can spend a drive that doesn't state as a reaction. So we've gone over this in another video with building a character. Every character has 2 different drives, which we might go over right now, maybe later. Now, whenever you level up past level 1, every single time you'll get your class features, and then you will also get to choose from one of the following here, which is 2 skill proficiencies of your choice, proficiency in any armor weight, proficiency in weapons with a certain trait, an additional drive slot, an additional +2 to your maximum stamina, and or mastery in a skill. So you choose one of these things every time you level up. So this is ways to get more, to increase your stamina above what it would normally be at your level, or there's ways to get more. This is the only way to get more drive slots, because everyone starts with 1 drive slot. So battle map scale will work just like D&D was. Size 3, or what would be equivalent to a medium character for D&D, takes up 1 space. And stuff like that. So this is a new gimmick which I recently added in. This is called Chaos. Because I was trying to get a more eldritch feel to some of this whole thing. So, Eldritch Wild West kind of fun stuff. So there is always a chaos counter in every campaign that you will play in this. Chaos as a base, when you start a campaign, is set to the number of players you have. The maximum chaos can be at is 10. And chaos will go up whenever one of the following happens, where a player rolls a 1 on a 20-sided dice, a neutral or friendly NPC to the party dies that could have been saved, a party member dies, a mission fails, 2 days pass in game, or a ritual is complete to weaken the walls. Each of those effects will add 1 chaos to the chaos counter. However, chaos is a resource that the GM can use for monsters or against the players to have them roll with disadvantage or do other things. Essentially to be like, I have this, a lot of it's more minor stuff, but there's some, like, as 5 chaos, you can allow an enemy to recover half their maximum hit points back. Or for 10, the DM can summon a calamitous creature, which would be like an eldritch abomination, somewhere in the world. Essentially, this is a plot thread to try to... This is a great way to use plot threads, is to use this one. But this is not something to be used as a GM versus player. This is still a cooperative storytelling game. So down below we have the character sheets, or the current versions. There's going to be a little bit of changes to these soon, but for the most part this is probably going to be pretty dang similar, or almost the exact same. Not quite, but it'll be pretty similar to what will be in the final game when this is ready. The spell sheet is more likely going to change because it is still kind of temporary. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into, well, actually, you know what? We're going to get into the races in the second video.